It is episode 1 of Jacket Sports Weekly. I'm Logan Arblaster, and we've got a full slate of Yellow Jacket athletics to cover, from cross country and golf to volleyball and football, and of course both soccer teams off to excellent starts. The fall sports scene is in full swing, and so let's jump right in here on WCTV.
Welcome to Jacket Sports Weekly, Waynesburg University's weekly sports show where we cover the best of the best in athletics. Our analysts discuss a multitude of highlight plays such as touchdown passes.
And Barber's going to throw again, one-on-one. Does he got it in him? That's a catch! Tyler Richmond, with flags thrown everywhere, makes the catch! Touchdown, Waynesburg!
And ones.
This was low, Waynesburg's going to get it! Suggs is going to pull away here, go for the layup, and it's going to fall in and one! PJ Suggs!
And home runs.
Higgins drives one to left field. The left fielder running back, and that ball is out of here. Grace Higgins.
Join us every Wednesday to see what's new in Waynesburg University athletics.
We'll start with men's and women's cross country at the Westminster Fisher Invitational. The Jackets put in a strong showing. The women were led by senior Grace Tanksley, while the men finished 8th with junior Kyle Casella turning in the fastest time for Waynesburg. We now bring in Benicio DeFalco, who is tasked with being the utility guy for this segment, going over cross country, golf, and getting into some women's tennis. But Benicio, we'll start with women's cross country here first. Take me through some of the top performers for the women's cross country team through the opening week.
I'm going to go with Grace Tanksley. She's a senior now. I'm curious on how she continues her senior season. I know she's hungry. She's going to be going for some of her PRs this season, being that in her senior year. She's already kind of set the foundation, being now that it's year 4. She finished 24th just this past weekend, which is just about average. I'm curious to see how she improves as the season goes on. And like I said, she's going to be going for PRs all season long, so I'm sure we'll be mentioning her a lot this year.
All 5 Yellow Jacket scores placed inside the top 50 for the women's side. Now, as for the men's, do the same thing. Break that down for me, Benny.
So the men, they placed 8 out of 10 different schools. Kyle Casella led the Yellow Jackets with the 52nd place in the 85 runner field. Casella clocked an 18-minute, 21-second to pace Waynesburg, scoring 5, while freshman Jack Hood was the number 2 finisher in 58th place with the 18-minute and 34-second. The rest finished between that 19 to 20-minute range, but they are only sophomores, so there's lots of time to improve, and I'm curious to see how they go as the season goes on, as it was only the first meet.
Both men's and women's cross country return to action on September 13th on a Saturday. And then on the course, women's golf traveled to the Teal Fall Invitational. The tournament featured 6 teams from the President's Athletic Conference. Now, the Yellow Jackets, they were just 1 player short of compiling a team score, because you need 1 more player for that. But there were several debuts in this opening outing for the women's golf team. Take me through those. Who impressed early on?
You got to talk about the big 3 just making their debut. Allison Wooling, Lexi Schmadl, and Emerson Anderson all made their collegiate debuts this past Saturday. Wooling led the way with a score of 100 overall to finish tied for 22nd out of 46. So just about average, a very solid freshman debut. Curious to see how she improves as the season goes on. Schmadl followed 2 shots back at 102, and Anderson followed with a 103. The future is very bright for this women's golf team. It's only early on. They're finishing just about average, and as freshmen, starting off average is definitely, I'd say, honestly, where you want to start as a freshman, as there's only time to improve. So, they're starting out just at the middle. So I think as they go on, we can start seeing them, maybe even by their senior year, place the top 10 finishes. I mean, that as a coach, as a golf coach, I think you got to be rather satisfied from your freshmen.
And there's going to be a lot of room to do that, because Waynesburg University has 6 events before they even get in the PAC Fall Championships. The men will get their season underway soon, but for the women, it's them setting the pace. And on the courts, we'll shift over now to tennis. They had some early matches early on. Things didn't really go their way, but Julia Umshare, she's a sophomore from Washington, PA. She had a pretty good first match here for Waynesburg University on the courts.
Yeah, despite the loss, like you said, 2 names come to mind, one of them being Julia Umshare. Like you said, only a sophomore. forced a third set super tiebreaker in tennis. It came down to that final set at the number 4 single spot before falling 6-3 in the first, 2-6 in the second, and then a 10-5 final. It was a very hard-fought match that she couldn't win. Curious to see if she's able to, kind of break the curse as the season goes on. Secondly, freshman Celeste Mazzulla made her yellow jacket debut as top of both singles and doubles as only a freshman. Very impressive at that feat. She's actually traveling all the way from South Africa, and I heard that she's transitioning phenomenal. So I'm curious to see how, as she goes on, because you got to keep in mind she's coming from South Africa. There's a lot of different barriers. She's only a freshman, and she's adjusting this well, being top of singles 100%. And doubles. Sky's the limit for her.
That's never an easy thing to do. I don't think I'd be able to have an accomplishment of that nature. And the Yellow Jackets, they did lose that last match to Penn State Altoona by a score of 7-0, by the way. Ben, you took me through some of the names that you said already, but are there any more notable names that this opening women's tennis match brought to your attention? Maybe some names showing some strong early form here.
Well, the two I mentioned I think are going to be the top, but I will speak on the team. This team, they fought a lot harder versus Penn State Altoona in the first match. I know they got swept, but in terms of progress, a lot of them were forcing that third set that wasn't there last year. I'll just say this, the competitiveness has definitely increased. I think, this tennis team, they weren't one to really mention too much this season. I think they can make a lot of noise with the freshmen. I mean, when you have that youth on the team and they're already performing, I mean, you got your singles and double number 1 already as a freshman. The sky's the limit for this team. They got the youth. I'm not too sure how much we're going to see them improve this season. I'm sure they're going to get that win they've been fighting for. But I think the main thing is going to be that progress from year 1 to year 2 and see how they improve as the years go on.
Waynesburg University women's tennis's next matchup is on September 6th. That's a Saturday. All right, inside the Rudy Marisa Fieldhouse, it's been a busy week also for the Yellow Jackets. When we come back, we'll bring in our volleyball analyst, Ethan Spozarski, to break down this volleyball squad that has a bunch of new names. That's all here on Jacket Sports Weekly, Episode 1. We continue on episode 1 of the 2025 school year. The Waynesburg University volleyball team faced RIT, Mount Aloysius, and Pitt Greensburg. Against RIT, Waynesburg lost, and they also lost to Mount Aloysius before bouncing back in a match that closed out the week against Pitt Greensburg. And to give us a full breakdown on the young volleyball season is a guy that called a couple of the games already. He's covered them. Ethan, what do you make, Ethan Spozarski, by the way, what do you make of the first few matches this season?
I take away a big thing is this is a team with a lot of potential, and it's also a team with a lot of new players and women on the team. There are 14 new players on this team, 12 of which are freshmen, and head coach Hope Johnston was able to go into the portal and bring in 2 other transfers to this team. You see a lot of different matchups, different of situations, maybe different sets of girls that you could put on the floor and really create an impact. Now, again, there's been a lot of non-conference games, 8 non-conference matchups so far played, and only 1 win so far. I can understand how that's a little alarming, but at the end of the day, the biggest focus thing is with this team, there's a lot of potential and a lot of building towards the future because it is heavily congested with a lot of different freshmen who bring a lot of different talent, and it's complemented with a lot of upperclassmen who really have contributed the last 3 or 4 years to their career.
So along the same lines that you just said there, Ethan, there was a lot of losses at the beginning of the season. They were able to show some resiliency against Pitt Greensburg, which was a huge deal. What do you make of that? Does that give you more confidence about the expectations that you have for this volleyball team going forward?
I mean, personally, kind of like 2 years ago with Emily Grossman when she really stepped in when she was the first coach for a while before she eventually left for Grove City. It was just there was a lot. You had some sprinkled with some complimentary upperclassmen talent, a lot of bright future. Now with the new coach of Hope Johnston, there's a different kind of culture to it. You can tell there's a different energy and a vibe that's being created from Hope Johnston from coming off of Emily Grossman. I think overall what you saw in Pitt Greensburg is a team that's hungry for a win, and I think getting your first match win is it gets the monkey off the back. It's the burden that gets off when what you've wanted to get. I mean, they were able to outscore Pitt Greensburg. I mean, as Christina Zadrozny primarily has been an excellent factor. She has been her 2 years here at Waynesburg dominant offensively. She had 13 kills, 2 blocks along with 13 digs along there defensively. Riley Ruffley's been another senior leader. She had 30 assists yesterday. Overall, you're seeing the different kinds of positions, different kind of sets of women on the court that you're seeing that complement each other and really work well. And again, this is a completely new team because for the last 4 years, it's been Jordan Stein who's been collecting the digs. It's been her and Paige Casley defensively who were doing a lot of the work. Now they're gone. They've graduated. They've moved on. And it's time for the carousel to start moving. So I think overall, Waynesburg's going to finally start seeing some progress. Last year was a little different because you had primarily upperclassmen. This year, completely different scenario with that 12 freshmen and 2 transfer setup.
So it is a younger team. You mentioned Zadrozny there that has led the Jackets in almost all categories so far. But I also want to ask you, is there anybody else on the radar for the Yellow Jackets volleyball team as you look ahead to the schedule? And with it being a younger team, who do you see as players that could really step up and have the Yellow Jackets take that next step towards competing?
I mean, honestly, the numbers there, and I think some of the even underclassmen or maybe women who didn't get a lot of chances before but are going to definitely see the floor now. I have a junior in mind, Peyton Coons. She's been heavily involved. She consistently finds herself on the stat sheet. I think something else you can look at, what I saw there before, Riley Ruffley is there. Emily Stutzman, who's a senior, she's finding her way onto the court now that there's been positions that have opened up. I think Audrey Work as well. She's a junior transfer. She's shown off and she's continuously found herself on the stat sheet. But overall, Kristen Schaefer as well. Mallory Boyd. When I announced the Kent State Tuscarawas match, and I went up to Hope Johnson. I said, can you talk to me what the mindset is moving pieces? And the 2 names she gave me that she wanted me to pay attention to was Zadrozny and Mallory Boyd. Right now she's 5'8" freshman out of West Jefferson, Ohio. She has been very electric, especially in that St. Vincent Bearcat Open Challenge. I think she's going to be probably the biggest, youngest name to look forward to for Boyd. But overall, Zadrozny, Zalowski, there are plenty of different names that even if they're not freshmen, now, like I said, with a few spots opening up, you're seeing a good chance for people to really fill in those different roles and find the different sets that are going to be effective. And I think doing that, especially before conference play, is going to be so crucial towards a good season.
Now, for some of the audience that might not pay as close of attention, can you walk me through some of the teams that Waynesburg will be competing with for the PAC this year? If there is a chance for them to go to the playoffs and compete against some of the upper echelon teams in the PAC, who are those and why are they in the position they're in?
Right now, I think Allegheny, again, there are different things. So Allegheny and Chatham have been 2 dominant powerhouses in the PAC. Somewhere closer, though, to kind of answer your question, a closer team that Waynesburg's always fared well against is Bethany. Bethany and Waynesburg, it's a back and forth kind of situation. It's not a one team dominates the other. It's traditionally a 4 to 5 set kind of thing in a match. You're not seeing just a clean sweep. It's back and forth. And I think Waynesburg last year getting some crucial contests are going to be important. Now, Waynesburg did lose 3-2 against Bethany earlier in the St. Vincent's Bearcat Open Challenge there. But for me, I think right now the 2 teams that are close to them are Bethany and Grove City, which Waynesburg beat Grove City last year. And again, I think that's where you got to focus right now with where this team is. Focus on the teams with you and building that foundation. Because come next year, while there will open up a few other spots with some of these graduating seniors, this team's going to be much better off with a fantastic head coach, a better morale, great chemistry, and on top of that, a bunch of sophomores who are going to have a lot of great playing time.
Yellow Jackets head to Allegheny College for matches against Penn State Barron and Houghton in the Allegheny Gator Invitational on Saturday. A couple more segments coming up after the break. Football, soccer, we got it next. Don't go anywhere. Let's shift our focus to Wiley Stadium that hosted a forgettable performance in Week 1 on the football field. Brett Gombita joins me now on Jacket Sports Weekly. He's tasked with giving his analysis on a sluggish first game for Waynesburg University football. The Yellow Jackets squared off with nationally ranked number 25 John Carroll, and despite their efforts, Waynesburg falling 48-14. I mean, the Waynesburg offense tried to get things going, but they were unable to until they were really down big in the second half. Brett, take me back through week one. No points scored for Waynesburg University in the first half. They were really unable to get the offense going. What went wrong in week one?
Yeah, I mean, you never want to be down 28-0 going into halftime, going into the locker room. And for this team, they just need to start early. You look at their first 5 drives of the game, Waynesburg, they go punt, 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 and a couple of safeties mixed in there as well, excluding the one-play handoff drive before halftime. But this is the same thing as last year. You look at the opener against Case Western last year, a 41-7 loss. Waynesburg punted the ball their first 4 drives in that game. And that's something that in 2024, it got better as the season went on. And I'm hoping that'll be the same way this year with this team. But overall, they just have to start early. And then those blunders on special teams cannot happen. We have a freshman long snapper. He was playing his first collegiate game. So I'm sure he's going to practice extra this week to make sure his snaps are on point, as one went over the head of the punter and one went beneath his legs pretty much, and he was wrapped up for a safety. So things like that, you can't give teams freebies like that, especially with the safety rules rewarding them the ball back, and John Carroll going on to score more touchdowns off of that.
Yeah, John Carroll scoring the Blue Streaks their first 5 touchdowns in a row of the game, 38-0 it was at halftime. Do you see any tactical changes that Waynesburg University can make as this season progresses?
Well, the one that's going to be talked about the most is the quarterback battle, and I don't think it's been decided yet. Both guys led a touchdown drive, Tommy Burke and Luke Hudson. If it were up to me, I would have this upcoming game against Dickinson be the game where you come out of there knowing who your quarterback's going to be for conference play, whether that be Burke or whether that be Hudson. I wouldn't give the edge to either one yet. I would use this upcoming game to see which one it would be. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I like the way they handled Tyron Montgomery, the number 1 receiver on John Carroll. He's an All-American, D3 All-American, third team. They held him to 6 catches for 80 yards. He doesn't make the All-American team putting up numbers like that. As a matter of fact, he averaged over 100 yards last season, and that's why he was named to that. So that's definitely an encouraging sign that the defense is able to handle these top dog receivers like that, and hopefully they can take that into conference play.
Talking about the quarterback battle, Tommy Burke did connect with Tyler Richmond on a 61-yard touchdown pass in the second half, so we'll see how that plays into things moving forward. Now let's shift our attention to the game against Dickinson University this weekend. It's on the road. Dickinson played against Randolph-Macon this last week, and they lost 48-34, so they were able to put up some points, but this is the first time that Waynesburg University is ever playing Dickinson in a game. How does that create a challenge for a team when they're going into a matchup for the first time? They have no film on the team that they're going to play, and what challenges does that bring for Waynesburg University this week?
Yeah, it was pretty much the same thing for the John Carroll game. The last time that they'd played John Carroll was before we landed on the moon, so you want to go back that far. But as for this Dickinson team, they lost 48-34 to Randolph-Macon in their season opener, another nationally ranked team in Randolph-Macon. Dickinson went 5-6 last year, 2-4 in the conference, lost their last 3 games of the season, as well as the season opener, as we mentioned. So Waynesburg could be catching them at the right time. They're down. They've lost 4 in a row. That could be the time Waynesburg travels in and comes out of here with a win. But it's going to take perfection in all the areas of the game. And getting back to Tyler Richmond, as you mentioned, I think it was good to see him renew his big play ability and show that he can do it with other quarterbacks in shotgun, because last year a lot of his big plays came with Sam Barber, who's no longer here. So it was good to see his chemistry with Tommy Burke in that last contest.
Waynesburg University will need a huge bounce-back performance, as you said, playing way better in all phases of the game, punting, special teams, offense, defense. Based off what we saw out of both teams week one, I know you said Waynesburg's going to have to play perfect, but if you could pick one thing for Waynesburg to improve on from week 1 to week 2, what would it be? How does that help them beat Dickinson this week?
I'll try to set the tone, really. If you can walk away with points on the opening drive, I think that's always crucial, and that's something this team has struggled with in the past, as I mentioned. Last year, it took them a while to kind of set that tone and score points early. So if that's something that they can work on in practice, kind of have a good drive script for the first couple drives and put some points up early, take a lead, and maybe they'll never look back.
Maybe take a page out of the Steelers script from last week, beating the Jets and scoring that opening drive touchdown with Aaron Rodgers. Thank you, Brett, for your time. I really appreciate it. But Let's move on to soccer. It's last but definitely not least. The soccer teams have impressed early on, and there are several players that have had standout performances. The games have been only out of conference so far, but there are signs of optimism as conference play draws closer. We'll be right back for the final segment on episode 1 of Jacket Sports Weekly. We're wrapping things up on the pitch. Men's and women's soccer are both working through their non-conference schedules. The women have opened up with a record of 4-0, lots of dominating performances. On the men's side, their record is 2-2 with Zachary Johnson leading the attack so far. I now bring in with me Anthony DeFilippo to my left to break down what has been a really successful season for the women's soccer team so far. Also, the men's team bouncing back in their last 2 matches with 2 wins in a row. They're at 2-2. But we'll start with the women's side of things first. Has there really been any weaknesses whatsoever for this team?
Well, Logan, you'd be hard-pressed to find them. This is their best start since 2018. 29 goals to 1 against so far. They've put 64 shots on the net in their first 4 games. That's an average of 16 per game. And they've only had 1 yellow card so far, so they're being extremely disciplined. But, Logan, one thing I really like about this team is they get contributions from everywhere. Depth has been fantastic so far for this Yellow Jackets squad.
So who has impressed you so far out of the depth that you mentioned? Who has it been that stood out to you?
Well, they've gotten conference-wide recognition. Jules Moorbacher, she was the Offensive Player of the Week 2 weeks ago, and Jessie Jury, who tallied 3 assists in their 15-0 blowout over Keystone on September 6th. She was the PAC Newcomer of the Week. So those are 2 people. And, of course, Miracle Hershey, her game-winning goal in her collegiate debut against Mount Union in the season opener. So those are 3 players so far that have extremely impressed me, along with the goalkeeper, of course, Alexis Greenleaf, who really hasn't been tested a whole lot.
There's so many times you check out who wins Player of the Week, and you always see Jules Moorbacher's name on that. Yeah. A huge name
Dual
in the
sport
program.
athlete,
Dual sport athlete,
Yep.
Basketball and soccer. What does her contributions mean to this team?
Well, like I just said, she's a dual sport athlete. She knows exactly what she wants to do on both the soccer pitch and on the basketball court. She's not just a role player for both teams, she's a star for both of those teams. And it's no surprise that the women's basketball team is on the rise because of the play of Jules Moorbacher. And now it's the same thing with the rise of this women's soccer team, who I think can make a really good push not only towards the playoffs, but be a strong contender for potentially the PAC championship this year.
Women's soccer lost in the quarterfinals last season. Men's soccer lost in the first round of the PAC playoffs, and they started out with 2 losses, both on the road to Worcester and Mount Union, but they were both 1-goal losses.
Right.
Then they responded with a 7-1 win over Penn State Altoona and a stingy 1-0 win over Pitt Greensburg. I mentioned they lost in the first round of the playoffs last year. If the team wants to make a playoff push, what's the key area of focus for them to adapt this season?
Well, the biggest loss for the men's soccer team last year, without a doubt, was their goalkeeper, Michael Frankus. So I was interested to see how they would kind of, divvy up those duties at the goalkeeper position. And Zach Reed, he's only played 1 half so far. He's the known commodity. The unknown commodity is their freshman goalkeeper, Devin Patel from Columbus, Ohio, and he has played 3.5 games so far, and he's been fantastic in those games. 15 saves on 18 shots on goal. He's only conceded 3 goals to this point. So it's going to be that goalkeeper position. They're staunch enough on the defense. They have Sam Norris coming back, Noah Beiser and Taylor McFarland, so they're okay in that area. But it's gonna be the goalkeeper position that's going to be their big what am I trying to say? Kind of contribution this year.
Men's soccer's next game is on Saturday at Baldwin Wallace at 7 p.m. Baldwin Wallace, that could present a tough challenge for this team.
Yep.
What do you expect previewing that matchup?
Well, I think if you look at their next couple of non-conference games, Baldwin-Wallace and in Carlo before they jump into PAC play, you just want to see more consistency, continue to put Devin Patel in net and see how he performs. Maybe get Zach Reed a game so he's not completely cold going into President's Athletic Conference play. And of course, I have to mention the absolutely offensive outburst by Zachary Johnson, who scored 7 points, had a hat trick in assist.
What do you call that? A behind-the-back foot goal? You can't call it.
Well, on the broadcast, Braden King called it a backhand, which is obviously a hockey term. A hockey guy. It's not a backhand. It's not. That's not the terminology at all. Back foot, behind the foot.
Behind the foot. We'll coin the term now. You heard it here first on Jacket Sports Weekly. Behind the foot.
Yeah. But this Waynesburg team, they're really gonna have to push. They just missed out in the playoffs last year. It was a tiebreaker with Washington and Jefferson. I think one of the big stats is the 4 ties last year. They got to flip some of those ties into wins, and that'll help them get over the hump. And of course, a couple of those losses, they had the teams that they probably didn't want to lose to. So they'll be able to flip it over and potentially make a push. Like I said, they're right around that 5 or 6 slot. All you got to do is get in and you have a shot.
Lots of close matches last year, lots of close matches so far for Waynesburg University. Both teams, men's and women, will look to use the early matchups as building blocks heading into conference play later this season. That'll do it for episode 1 in the 2025-26 school year on Jacket Sports Weekly. Be sure to check in next week as we continue to bring you the latest from around Waynesburg University athletics. Until then, I'm Logan Arblaster, and this is Jacket Sports Weekly on WCTV.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.